Fantastic. Let's get it going. Leilani, ¿te podrías poner con ellas y darles traducción? Muchas gracias. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nancy Herrera. I'm the State Director for Poder Latinx. And I'm so excited to be here today to moderate this panel, this conversation. Our panel is titled, Looking Ahead, How Latinas Are Blazing the Path Forward. A space where we'll uplift voices, share stories, and dive into the incredible leadership these Latinas are bringing to this critical moment. Here's how the flow will start. We'll start with a brief overview of our panel. Then each of our panelists will have an opportunity to briefly introduce themselves. And then we'll move into a Q&A discussion afterwards. And if time permits, we can do some bonus questions as well. First off, I'd like to share about the summit. The Poderosas Summit is Poder Latinx's signature leadership event, created by Latinas for Latinas in 2025. We're taking it regional for the very first time. We usually do this in Washington, D.C. once a year, but now we're coming locally as we notice the importance of having our Latinas being civically engaged and mobilizing our communities. After powerful gatherings in Washington, D.C., the summit is expanding to 4 key states: California, Arizona, Georgia, and Texas, bringing leadership, training, and civic empowerment directly to the communities, driving change on the ground. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So, diving into the panel. Today's panel is about Latinas, how Latinas are on the forefront of shaping Arizona's future, driving change in politics, cultural, and business. Grassroots movements in this pivotal moment with urgent local issues demanding action now in critical midterm elections on the horizon. Our leadership and vision are more essential than ever. The panel will highlight how Latinas are not only breaking barriers, but also build solutions through civic power. Together, panelists will explore how Latinas can turn today's momentum into lasting impact, ensuring our voices define the future of Arizona and beyond. First, huge round of applause to our panelists for being here today and giving us their essential time. So let's get started. And feel free, whoever wants to take on the...
¿No vas a hacer en inglés español?
Sí.
Ah, ok.
Bueno, Leilani está traduciendo, pero si le puedes ayudar.
Ahí nos aventamos inglés.
Thank you, Raquel. A lot of the work that Poder Latinx and the biggest bucket is our voter registration electoral work. So let's dive into voting rights and civic power. What's at stake for Latinas in Arizona in the midterm elections next year, and how can we turn today's energy into action that protects our right to vote and strengthens our power?
Okay, thank you. I'm starting this one off because this question is really near and dear to me. So I'm so grateful to be here with you all. I am a 5th generation Arizonan, and I am the mother to 3 daughters. And so I think about democracy a lot, and what kind of democracy are my girls going to inherit? And thinking about this question today, about how can we take this and turn it into this energy into action. I just keep thinking about the constant attacks on our voting rights, right? We've seen recently the restrictions to mail-in ballots, the challenges to voting rolls, the intimidation at the polls, and all of this has a direct impact on our communities. And it feels hard and heavy, but none of it is new, right? This is all systematic. So how do we build a system that includes us? And it starts here in this room. And it starts with organizations like Poder Latinas, reaching out and having events like this, bringing it back to the community and making it accessible, taking it out of DC and putting it in our own backyard so that more of us can plug in, right? And so it means taking the energy from today and turning that into not only making sure that we're registered, but as Latinas, making sure that our friends and families are also registered, that we are talking to them about why it's important to vote, not just vote in a presidential election, but vote every election, not just at the top of the ticket, but all the way down the ballot, and being able to educate one another about why that's important. So that means plugging in two spaces like this so that we feel empowered to share, because studies have shown that the reason people don't engage is because they don't feel like they know enough. But we know enough. We know the people in this room, right? We know our lived experience. So that's how we take this energy from today and we turn it into action. We follow through, we have conversations, and we do the thing. We register, we vote. Every time, all the way down the ballot.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Absolutely. Latinas are the largest growing bloc. Our voice matters. We are the pillars of not only our community, but our familias, right? So if we put that into practice, others will follow. If we can engage our communities, they will follow. So always lead by example. Thank you, Natalie, for that. Let's go into a very important topic also that's been very hot since the beginning of the year, which is immigration. How can Latinas turn today's local efforts for immigration justice into lasting change and carry that momentum into the election ahead?
Bueno. First, I think we need to protect our democracy, and I feel really strongly. Every year we have the challenge that we say, this is the most important election of our lifetime. This is the most important election of our lifetime. This is because they have the opposition, the ones that are so far to the right, that have gone so hard to the right, do want to see an authoritarian regime. They want to see one person dictating to everybody what our lives are going to be. They are seeing that they navigate under an umbrella of freedom, but they in reality want control, full control of our children, what they learn in schools, what happens with our bodies, what happens with our housing, what happens with our roads, everything. They want control of everything, how we do business. So we do have to pour in our heart and energy into next year's election. So thank you so much for showing up today to register people to vote, because it's going to take one person at a time. And I know, like I was hearing, it's a challenge. It's not easy. It's not easy, but we're going to have to make it as sexy as possible. And it really, the way that you make it sexy is when we do it together. I mean, all right. And I'm really worried here because I'm recording. The way that we make it more appetizing for people to engage, I hope, is if we build community and we go out and register people to vote together. All right. But around immigration, I shared yesterday at the end of the day that I get the question all the time of why are we losing more men to Donald Trump? ¿Por qué los hombres están votando por Donald Trump? I'll tell you, if I do any interview, English or Spanish, that's going to be the question. And so my response to them is like, why are we not focusing on the women who organize the family, who organize in their community, who are the ones who, at the end of the day, the kids listen to su mamá. Escuchan a mamá. Who has a chancla? La mamá. Maybe it's a figurative chancla. No necesariamente, it doesn't have to be a physical chancla, but it is the moms who are reigning in the households, right? And sometimes they're in the forefront, sometimes they're behind the scenes. So we need to be talking to the moms. We need to be talking to the promotoras. I know the promotoras están aquí adentro. Ustedes son las promotoras. Pero a veces hay promotores, pero la mayoría del tiempo están las promotoras. So in this moment that we are seeing this administration openly say that they were going to separate our families, right? They were not shy about the agenda that they brought into this administration. Their intention is to separate families. We saw it the last election. Last election, when Donald Trump was elected, the agenda was to separate families at the border. Now the agenda is to separate families wherever they are. So the mamas are the ones who are going to fight back. And I see this room as maybe we have mamas here, maybe we don't. But I think hay muchas, pero yo creo que those are the ones who are going to help us carry the stories and carry the agenda.
Hi everyone. That was awesome, Raquel. Thank you. I'm Dulce Juárez Aguilar. I was brought as a migrant, as an immigrant woman, as a child with my mom. We migrated when I was 5 years old. So I know what it is to be undocumented. I know, sé lo que es ser indocumentada porque vine con mi mamá cuando me trajo cuando tenía 5 años. Y that is how I became criminalized. That is my journey as an immigrant, as an undocumented young person, was how I became involved in politics and how I learned about just the importance of getting involved. So at a very young age, we migrated here. The border it was in the 90s. The border wasn't what it is today. It wasn't militarized like it was now, like it is now. And my mom came for a better future. Mi mamá nos trajo a mí y a mi hermana a los 5, cuando yo tenía 5, porque ella buscaba un mejor futuro. Pero mi propia experiencia de ser undocumentada es lo que a mí me hizo crecer y conocer sobre la política. So when I was in elementary school, I'm very grateful. I had 2 very amazing Chicano movement leaders and people in the administration, Mr. Trujillo, who was from the Chicano movement of the 60s, and Ms. Quimby, who her family was a part of the farm workers movement. And she used to pick onions and lettuce before going to school when she was little. So they took me under their wing and they're like, do you know who Cesar Chavez is? Do you know who Dolores Huerta is? And that's how I learned about getting involved and being an activist, and they taught me about networking. Anyhow, I share all of this because they were the ones who told me, go to college, what are your dreams? And I was like, well, I do want to go to college, but I don't have papeles. No tengo un social security, no puedo ir a la escuela. So it was in that process that I was like, okay, I heard about the DREAM Act. And the DREAM Act was the first congressional bill that I had ever heard about. So this was like 20 plus years ago, y'all. I was very little, empecé bien chiquita. Y there was a really amazing lawyer who invested in leaders like you all, who invested in me at the time was Emilia Bañuelos.
Emilia, mujer.
Sí, mujer. Yes. Y la abogada Emilia Bañuelos fue la que estaba invitando a jóvenes. Vengan a salir, vengan a protestar, vengan a abogar por el DREAM Act. Si pasamos el DREAM Act, van a agarrar papeles. Les vamos a dar una oportunidad para que pueda crecer, ir al colegio y agarrar papeles. So immigration is an issue that I'm very familiar with, and I can tell you that now, thankfully, after going to college, undocumented, getting my college education, pude ir a la universidad con todo pagado porque estoy muy activa en liderazgo, por mi liderazgo, porque estaba en la comunidad. Y el caso es de que pasó la Prop 300, la propuesta 300 en 2006. Y yo y muchos estudiantes como yo perdimos nuestras becas. We lost our scholarships due to Prop 300, which made it so that undocumented students wouldn't be able to go to school because you didn't have papers. They tripled our tuition overnight. from $4,000 to then we had to pay like $20,000 for a semester at school. So nuestra colegiatura cambió, nos hicieron como estudiantes internacionales, nos dijeron, no tienen papeles, les vamos a cobrar triple, so de 4,000 a 20,000, así. Y nosotros, ¿cómo vamos a pagar eso? So nos organizamos, muchos estudiantes nos organizamos, y así es como tenemos Arizona Dream Act Coalition, tenemos Aliento, tenemos otras organizaciones como United We Dream que se desarrollaron por parte de ese movimiento estudiantil. So, ese es el movimiento del que yo vengo, y la razón por que quiero compartir todo esto es porque luego pasó la SB 1070, luchamos contra la 1070 y hemos luchado contra muchos antimigrantes, mucha gente antimigrante, y aquí vinieron ellos, hicieron sus testing, ¿verdad? Y ahora lo vemos nacionalmente, lo que está pasando es porque empezó todo aquí con el drug pino, con la Jan Brewer, con la bruja, con el Russell Pierce, ¿verdad? Y entonces todas las personas, muchos sabemos lo que ha pasado. Y lo más importante que yo he visto que sí funciona es que organizaciones como Puente y otros más nos estamos organizando para documentar lo que está pasando, para nosotros hacer record al ICE, nosotros documentarlos, para nosotros llevarlos a corte con la ACLU y con otras organizaciones que estamos luchando para atrás porque no nos vamos a dejar. Eso es muy importante, que no tengamos miedo, que nos eduquemos, que observamos nuestros derechos, y que lo más importante es tener redes comunitarias, es lo más importante. So, gracias por escuchar, ya me voy a callar.
¿Cómo crees? Muy bien, thank you for sharing. Al igual, fíjate, Emilia Bañuelos ayudó a mis padres en el proceso porque ya tenían una orden de deportación, y ahí entré yo con ellos, desafortunadamente, estaba chica, y ella me había invitado también, ven con nosotros, y mi papá, no, ¿cómo crees? No vayas por el miedo, fíjate. Por el miedo, pero yo vi el movimiento, cómo se desarrollaba en la tele, en las noticias. Entonces, muchas gracias para las que sí tuvieron este valor de salir, porque entonces están más estudiantes, más que pudieron obtener la DACA y todo por eso. Muchas gracias por esto. Yeah, we should sharing that. My parents also visited Emilia Bañuelos at that time, the immigration lawyer. My parents were in deportation proceedings, and, unfortunately, I was included because I was underage. So there I go along with them, and she would also invite me, come out and speak, tell your story. But my parents were so afraid that, I would get picked up and be deported, so they would never allow me. Absolutely not. But they inspired me because I would see them on TV, I would see them on the news, the protests. So thank you so much for those brave young folks, men and women, everyone that came out, unafraid and unapologetic for this movement. Thank you. I got so excited to start this panel that I didn't even allow you guys to introduce yourselves. Please. No, let's take 30 minutes. I want this to last all day. The mic's like in and out. Okay, if we could take 30 seconds to a minute to introduce each and every one of you, please.
You're gonna give a little bit. Well, no, I shared a little bit about myself yesterday. I am originally from Agua Prieta and Douglas, siempre de la frontera aquí. And just like Dulce said, I grew up in a street that divides the United States and Mexico when the border was a wire fence. It was very imperfect. It had a hole, and if the ball went over the fence because we were playing there, we could go through that hole and bring back the ball. And it was, but right now, if you go to Agua Prieta and Douglas, there's a wall, there's fences, there's wires, and it is a very militarized area. So after 9/11, that's when in Arizona, things started to get more extreme when it came to the issue of immigration with the elected officials, with propositions that were being posed to the voters as well as in our state legislature. So that is the issue that got me started, is immigration. When I started to see that it was, that border was not, for me, it was my community. It's how we grew up. Todos los días cruzábamos. We used to cross every day. But then when I started to realize how political it was, that's when I decided to get involved. And it was in looking for organizations. I didn't have one clear organization. I jumped from one place to another, including the church, because I'm a Catholic. And I remember there was a white ribbon campaign. It was Pray for Immigration Reform, which is like, yes, let's pray, but let's also make shit happen. And so I jumped until I found the March of 2006, which were marches that happened all over the country. And here in Arizona, in Phoenix, we had 200,000 people marching. And at that march, I was handed a clipboard with voter registration forms. And the theme of the march was, today we march, tomorrow we vote. Hoy marchamos, mañana votamos, cuando fui a esa marcha. So, like I said yesterday, I drank that theme and that Kool-Aid, and I have been living it and breathe it, and I'm going to be helping our communities be part of the decision-making process so that we can get to the best reality in their lives.
I love hearing what brings people in, and I love like how it starts, like at different ages for different people for different things. So I was born here at St. Joseph's Hospital here in Phoenix, and I was born to a Mexican father. My tata, helped lay the streets here in Phoenix. He worked for the Arizona Department of Transportation. And he wasn't allowed to swim in the pools here. My nana was white passing, so she could. She didn't, but it was hard for my dad to be raised in a home that felt like he had to kind of hide who he was. He went to Catholic school, and the nuns would, beat him if he spoke Spanish. And so he was taught not to speak Spanish. And now here we are, he's 70 years old and living through a time when, again, it's dangerous to speak Spanish. Our Supreme Court just said legitimatized some of the worst traits of our country. And so I was always raised knowing that there were differences and that there were prejudices. And so I was always taught to fight for what was right and for equity across the board. And we went to the marches as a family against SB 1070. But at that time, I lived in Santan Valley, and I didn't know what to do. And I was raising 3 little kids, and I was just covered in babies. And I was teaching at the time in a rural school district. And then it was actually in 2016 when Donald Trump was elected. That's what really politicized me. And I just thought, like, this can't be what my 3 girls are growing up in. And so I ran for office, and I didn't win. But I learned so much, and I learned that there was a disconnect in my community. They didn't know. They knew what they needed. They knew what they wanted. But they didn't know that that person who was representing them down at the state capitol was the person responsible for so much of what was wrong in their own communities. And so I knew that I wanted to help connect the dots. And so I started an organization with somebody who was a co-founder and co-executive director, and we started talking to people, and we grew, and then that's how I came to know all these amazing people and got involved, and I saw that there was so much opportunity. And so if this is your first interaction with Poder Latinx and with our organizations, or if it's your 10th or 50th, or if you've been doing this because you were politicized from the earliest of ages, share your stories, keep talking about it, because there's somebody who needs to know it. There's somebody who's wondering what they can do. And so I'm just really grateful to be in this room and in this fight with each of you.
already shared a little bit, but just so you know, yeah, I'm an immigrant from Mexico, Sonora. Raised here, been here over 30 years. I'm a mom now, have a little one, Magda, and I have another one on the way. I'm a mamacita. And yeah, and I grew up undocumented, went to college. I'm a first generation graduate from my familia, the first one to go to college. I'm happy to talk to any of you about going to college if you want that route. I've been in activismo for so long, I'm like so long. And now I'm exploring philanthropy, which is a whole nother world about funding our movements and moving money. And I really enjoy it all. I think it's so important to find where the money is and give it back to the people. And I think that that's what's so important is figuring out who the groups are that are doing incredible work like you all and making sure that we're advocating people that come from the movement to be able to advocate for communities that are actually doing the hard work because we come from that space. So I'm really excited to be a part of that world and happy to talk to any of you and also be a mentor if you're looking for a mentor. Like, please, like, ask me questions. I know that I wouldn't be here without mentors and people. And I also have been thinking a lot about Alfredo Gutierrez, who is a a legend in our community who passed away. And he would always light up a fire in us that was like, be in education and invest in education and invest in our youth and stop going to your little cocktail parties. You need to be knocking doors. You need to be putting the work in with the youth, focus on the youth. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to the youth. So I'm really happy that I'm here with you all. I'm really happy that we have this opportunity to be here together. And again, just I'm happy to share any sort of wisdom or experience or whatever stage you're in. If I can offer some support, I'm happy to be a resource.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that from each and every one of you. Nancy Herrera, State Program Director for Poder Latinx. And they, you know, the reason I got into this movement, and as many of you know, because I've connected with you in various events, and some of you don't know, is because of my parents. They were picked up by ICE at my house when I was 5 months pregnant. You know, and it was an unfortunate event, but also it was life-changing for me. I came to the States when I was 3 years old. So I grew up in Riverside, California. Growing up, my parents told me that I was from Riverside, California. And I have a very funny story behind that, but we can talk later. So there I go. And then, you know, we moved to Arizona in '94. And here is, you know, where I grew up. This is where I cemented my roots. Where I built my family. And when I got married and my husband was trying to petition me, I had to go to Ciudad Juarez. At that time, I had a child, a newborn and a 3-year-old child. And the immigration officer said, you're not going back. You know, you're denied. Oh man, my world just crumbled. I didn't know what to do, you know. But fortunately enough, I had my parents already there. They had already, you know, built a life. They were those people that really lived the motto, you know, venimos a hacer algo. We came to do something in the U.S. My dad always knew that he wasn't from here, and he never felt that he was from here. And decía, ahorren, save your money, because one day we might have to go back. So, you know, they started their life again, and by the time I went back home, I went home comfortably. I went to a house that had running water, electricity, an American house, right? So no me faltaba nada. But then the year went by, another year went by, and I realized Americanized. And it really penetrated why my parents left Mexico to pursue other opportunities. I was in Mexico for 3.5 years. And cut the story short, when I came back, I said, I have to do something. And again, reliving, the time from the lawyer that invited me and then seeing everything on TV, I said, I have to get involved. How do I do that? And then I saw a familiar face on TV, Christian. I saw him on TV and I said, oh, I'm reaching out to that kid. Because he's younger than me, believe it or not. And he was fighting for DACA. He was fighting for DACA at that time. And I said, hey, how can I get involved? I understand now. I was growing up privileged. I was growing up, the American way. I was so Americanized. I wasn't allowed to share my story. I had to be silent. So 2016, Christian said, come on, you want to work for Mi Familia Vota? There we go again. And there I go. And it was life-changing. It was everything and more than I expected. Helping my community, being out there, advocating for them, knowing that I had a voice, right? And that I could help others. It was phenomenal. So thank you so much. Thank you for paving the way for that experience for me. So, yeah, aquí estamos. Y no nos vamos, right? Thank you so much. So leading into that, how can we get others motivated? How can we motivate others to come into the movement at this critical moment in time? How can we open more doors for Latinas, right? To lead in government, public service, and access to education, like you just mentioned, Lucen. Starting today, making sure voices are represented in decisions ahead. And I'd like to hear from each and every one of you because you hold a different position in every way.
Oh, well, you want, since that was the first one. But then, no. No, I think that's a great question because we need to be in every single role. We need to figure out how we support each other to be in all the roles. We need to make sure that we have the best teachers in the front of the room. We need to make sure that we have the best elected officials from school board all the way to president. We need to make sure that if you don't want to be a mom, that you choose not to be a mom, pero no te obligan, like if you want to be a stay-at-home person, you can do that. But as the question arises of like, what do we do in this moment? I'm not going to kid. I felt so different this time around of with these attacks, with these administration, where they're calling it the shock and awe, right? They're throwing so much at us that it makes us pause and not sure where to turn. But at the same time, we have so many learnings from the past. And many of us think that the movement starts when we jump into the movement, but no. And those are the words that Alfredo Gutierrez una vez me pegó una regañada. It's like, oh, you kids think that the movement starts when you jump into the movement. No, there's so much work that has been done before us, right? There's the farm worker movement. There's a civil rights movement. Arizona, when it was founded, it was a progressive state. It was pro-worker. Then corporations started to come in, and then, oh, no, how do we become richer and richer? So there's lessons learned throughout Arizona. Of course, there's lessons learned before, like our state was founded and across the country and in our nations and across the world. So we need to look at those lessons, and we need to take what worked and figure out how we're going to do things differently at the same time. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we have. It's like, what has worked? Ya sabemos que registrar a gente para votar funciona, We know that registering people to vote works because we have transformed the political landscape here in Arizona. We ousted Sheriff Arpaio. We ousted Russell Pierce, who was the one who wrote SB 1070. We changed the leadership from the governor de La Bruja in 71, the Jan Brewer, to a Democratic governor that right now is vetoing bills that left and right. We changed the Secretary of State that wanted to do away with early voting to one that protects our access to the ballot box. The Attorney General, for crying out loud, she is suing Donald Trump left and right. And that was not done by accident. That was done by progressive organizations that, despite the shortcoming of some of the candidates, we have been pouring our hearts and souls into engaging our communities in the decision-making process. So on the one hand, we might need to still support some of those candidates that are not the perfect candidate, but we can work towards getting those perfect candidates that are coming from our community. So it might be you who are sitting down. Yesterday, somebody said, I'm running for LD 24. Somebody else told me that they were running for LD 8. So people are stepping up to take those places of power. When I was running for Congress and even through the state legislature, I would say, I changed my megaphone for a microphone. So we need to find what our microphone is. And the last thing I'm going to say is that at the end of the day, how we got to that transformation was because everything in life is based on a relationship. Everything in life is based on a relationship. So you have to cultivate the one-on-one conversation. You have to cultivate what motivates the person who's next to you to get involved in a very genuine way. And you share what motivates you. Right, and so it's our job to agitate, to steer the imagination of the people that are part of our communities. It's our job to agitate, and it's our job to give hope. It's our job to create urgency, and it's our job to give that person their role. And it's called the Ajuy. No se les olvide. Karina is shaking her head because the Ajuy is agitate, create hope, create urgency, and the Y is the U. And so we have structures, but in order for us to implement those structures, we have to base them in our relationship. I thought he was laughing at the corner of my eye.
Raquel, that was like a mic drop moment. So talking about leadership and how do we make space, I think about democracy as a whole and representation is not a privilege. Representation is democracy, right? We shouldn't be asking for the seat at the table. We should be taking the seat at the table. Like Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't give you a seat, you bring a folding chair. So that's the kind of energy that we need to bring into this space, into next year, into the midterms. And when we're talking to folks, it's that we know what our communities need. We are from our communities. And so we are the representation. And so what does that look like? And when things feel hard, which they do right now, right? Raquel said it's shock and awe. It feels different. And that can lead to fear, and fear can lead to paralysis. And what we need to remember is that we're not alone. And what we also need to remember is, like Raquel mentioned, we have history. We have ancestors, and we know how to fight. And so for us, it means something to come together, to be in a space, to share ideas, to build relationships. And it means that it's building power. It's not just coming together. We don't just come together to come together. We come together because we love each other, and where there's love, there's power.
Amen.
And so we really do have the ability to come into these rooms and make a difference. We do have the ability to come in and change outcomes. And that's up and down the board. It's what Dulce said, it's mentorship. it's education, it's getting out and running for office, from boards and commissions to school board to state capitol, all the way to Congress. We deserve to sit at that table. And so for us, I think in this room, we need to plan. We need to be planners, and we need to remember that, yes, SB 1070 was hard, but over the last 2 days, you've heard from the young people who started at SB 1070. Now they're the leaders in this space today. Hard times build leadership, right? We are called to meet this moment, and we will build the future. So we've done it before, we can do it again.
I was just thinking about, you mentioned Christian, the Christian, Cristiana. Nancy gave you a shout out, you weren't here, but, you got her into the movement. She saw you, and she saw you advocating, but you know who brought Christian into the movement? Again.
We had the phone back.
So, yeah, full circle, un momento de círculo completo, porque Nancy dice, me trajo a Cristian para acá para activarme, y luego, pues, ¿quién activó a Cristian? Aquí está Raquel, y Raquel viene Alfredo Gutiérrez y muchos otros más, ¿verdad? Y que Alfredo Gutiérrez decía, el movimiento no empezó contigo ahorita, el movimiento empezó 100 años atrás, cuando nos cruzaron la frontera. So, remembering our roots, remembering history, and we're again mentioning Alfredo Gutierrez, who was a legend in our community, and please look up what his history is, because he just recently passed away. May he rest in peace, in power. And he was one of our mentors, one of Raquel's mentors, and just again, full circle moment. But what he would say is, the movement didn't start with you right now because you're here. The movement started over 100 years ago when the border crossed us. So always remembering and staying rooted in the history of, like, all the people that came before us, like you mentioned, Natalie. So we need Latinas everywhere. You're right. Like, we need Latinas in education and finance and science and all of the things. So please, like, whatever track you want to go into it and find a mentor. Find people that can help you, that can support you, that can teach you the way, that can answer questions for you. And don't be shy. Like, really let people know what you want to do. If you don't ask, people won't know. So please ask questions. Let people know. Can you connect me with people? Can you introduce me to someone? It's really that simple, and that will snowball into something more. And so I think it's just more about finding what you're most passionate about. What is the issue that moves you most? If it's climate action, if it's running for office. I hear there's also a seat open for Laura Pastorzi. So there's a powerful poderosa in this room that wants to run, what is it, City Council seat 4? Yeah. District 4. There's a badass Latina that's about to leave that seat. Laura Pastor, so, right, she's leaving, yeah. Okay, so there's Pero, okay. So, si hay alguien aquí que quiere correr para ese asiento, una poderosa se va a salir de este asiento y necesitamos otra poderosa que llegue a ese asiento en el distrito de la ciudad, el distrito 4. So just putting it out there. And that's how it starts, right? And I've also heard that women need to be asked like 30 times to run for office before they even consider the idea of running for office. So if you're even thinking about it, that's also one track, right? But I'm a big believer that in the movement, mi gente has the saying, within the movement, outside of the movement, against the movement, right? And there's different ways of existing within our systems than what we currently have. So nosotros podemos existir de muchas maneras, contra el sistema, con el sistema y adentro del sistema, ¿no? Entonces uno puede escoger cómo tú te quieres mover en el mundo, cómo quieres luchar tú, de qué manera y con qué enfoque, si es un enfoque de ambientalista o si es un enfoque de correr por el gobierno, si es un enfoque de cualquier enfoque que tú tengas, sigue esa pasión y pide ayuda y haz preguntas.
Ha sido lo que se ha escuchado desde que comenzó el summit. Si necesitas apoyo, quieres mentorship, quieres sponsorship, Ana también lo dijo, ¿verdad? La keynote speaker. So I love to hear that our panelists are so open to mentoring, providing sponsorship, and that was the tone provided by our keynote speaker yesterday, and it continues on into this last panel. Thank you so much. I also want to add my little grain of salt then, if you need mentorship, if you need any knowledge that I can provide for you, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always willing to help. Y como siempre he dicho, y mi papá, y lo voy a repetir, el sol sale para todos, ¿verdad? El sol brilla para todos. No, y no nacemos sabiendo, pero podemos aprender. So again, my dad's saying that the sun shines for everyone, right? And we aren't born knowing, but we can learn. So thank you so much for that. It was so beautiful and inspiring. And I'd like to have some opportunity for our guests to, ask any questions to our panelists. Who wants to be the first one? Oh, we already have one back there.
I want to start off with two statements. We the people, and it takes a village to raise a child. So my question to you, for all three of you, is, and even yourself, as leaders, standing here in front of future leaders, what would you tell that inner child, to your inner child, assuming that we're the ones listening to that voice that helps you through the path, the chaos, the craziness that's going on out there? How do you nurture that inner child and the mental health that you nurture throughout the path that you're in?
Thank you. Híjole. Who wants to start me? Oh, okay, I get it. All right, that's a really good question. Mira, I always tell people I was the oldest, la primera nieta, la primer sobrina, la primera hija, but I was a very shy. Like you see me right now, I struggled in school to make friends. I was a very shy person. Now I could podría mandar a mis primos, a mis hermanos, y en muchas otras partes, pero no en la escuela. I had a difficulty making friends, and just being in the classroom, I was like more in the corner. I up to this day, every time I'm going to speak and I have my two friends, I keep Corina and Monse, I have a tactic that I use. It's called tapping. And I recognize when I feel nervous. So I think like what I would tell myself, like, what you can't feel nervous. Lo reconozco yo. Yo sé que me siento nerviosa, pero las palabras correctas van a salir de mi boca. Yo sé que no sé qué es lo que está pasando en este momento, pero tengo mi comunidad que me va a ayudar a entenderlo. I know that right now we don't know a lot of things, but with my community, I'm going to learn it. And I started to use that therapy. And now I practice it with my child. Yo también tengo un hijo de 9 años. I also have a kid of 9 that was 9 years old. And please don't tell him that I share this. Because now, we're getting to the point where things are more private. But okay, anymore. But I use the tapping with him. And so I wish I would have known when I was a kid that even though I was feeling a certain way, things still can turn out okay. Things can turn out good. So recognizing the emotion, and I think like that's one of the moments that we're in as a country, is like recognizing that there's fear, but knowing that we can get through it. Es lo mismo que me dijera de chiquita.
Thank you. This is such a beautiful question. Thank you for asking it, because I really do think sometimes when you're in the middle of a bombardment and it can feel so overwhelming, it's hard to remember sometimes, how do I take care of myself? And especially as women, I think, I too, Raquel was the first granddaughter, the first daughter, the first all the days. So there's a self-esteem.
Yeah.
I think if you're the first, there's a lot, and you're not supposed to think about yourself. You're supposed to take care of other people. And in big moments and in moments of crisis, that can sometimes feel overwhelming. And so I do believe that in order to heal our communities, we have to heal ourselves first. And so even just the self-awareness to know I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling scared. I think even that is a step for so many of us, just to even be able to name. For years I was a shaky, bitey, didn't know that was anxiety until I was an adult. But we just carry all of that. And so I do think you have to have tactics. I think you have to know yourself. I think you have to be able to at the end of the day, ask for help. And that can sometimes feel hard. And it means leaning on each other. It means creating a support system. It means creating trust with one another that allows us to be imperfect. And I think at the end of the day, what I remember is I don't have to do everything, but I do have to do something.
Amen.
And something might mean that I need to retreat for a day, and I have to know that too. So I think it's that self-awareness and building that community of safety that helps me. And what I would tell my inner child, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be perfect, but you do have to keep showing up.
I love your question. Thank you. It was such a good question. I think for me, one thing that I'm very grateful for in my journey is that I had really amazing Indigenous elders in my life that took me under their wing. Tupac, who also passed away, and so many others in our community. But if you see over here, I put up a little altar. I'm big on altars. I think they're so important to have an altar where you can ground yourself. And we always have the 4 elements. You have water, fire, air, and earth. And you always want to have a place, a sacred place where you can come back to yourself, to ground yourself after this work, because this work is very heavy and this work is very spiritual too. There's a reason why you're being called to do this work. So find the time, the moment, and to create a special sacred space in your home to honor yourself, honor your ancestors, and to the inner child, you could even put a little photo of yourself when you were little and talk to that little child, because we do need to self-regulate. And sometimes through therapy in the past sessions that I've had is that it's so important to figure out who's in charge when you're having a moment of activation or a moment where you're feeling triggered. Is asking, is Dulce, 38-year-old Dulce in charge right now, or is it 5-year-old Dulce in charge? Or who is leading right now? Who is talking? Who is the person that is in control right now? So it's like really talking through with yourself and seeing who is in that moment when you're triggered, that is being activated. Because it might be that little Dulce, that little inner you just needs a hug, needs a nap, just like little kids, needs a hug, needs a nap, needs ice cream, needs a walk in the park, needs to play. So yeah, it's really figuring out those cositas, right, that really nurture you, because we still have that inner child and we still need to connect with that inner child. And this work, y'all, I've tried to leave so many times because I burnt out, because it was heavy. I used to work at the ACLU many years ago. It was one of my first big jobs. And my job was to answer calls of undocumented people being stopped by ICE. My job was to collect over 6,000 calls of people across the country and the state that were calling me saying, "Me paró la policía, ¿qué hago?" And can you imagine being on the other side of the phone and trying to be like, okay, ¿cómo se llama el policía? ¿Qué es el número del policía? ¿Dónde está? And all of that, I took it in. For 2 years I was doing that work. My hair started to fall out. And I went to go get tested. I had a gynecologist test or whatever, because you should do your checkups, your health and wellness checkups. And it turned out that I had like my test results my pap smear came back off, and that it could be cancer. So at a very young age, I was in my 20s. And so thankfully, though, I went to a midwife love her, Marina. She saved she saved me because she was like, Dulce, don't do a biopsy. I think we can do this naturally. I think there's ways that if you take good care of yourself, we can undo this. And so thankfully through natural medicine, through plant medicine, through acupuncture in different ways, I started to take better care of myself. We were able to reverse it and then everything came back clear. So I didn't have cancer, pero yeah, uterus, womb cancer, no me acuerdo cómo se llama. I can't even think right now. Pero the point is that I took on all of that energy of the calls of the people, of the pain and the suffering from that hotline. And it was really awful and hearing the sad stories, and it was really hard, y'all. This was like 2013, many years ago. But this work is heavy and it is sad, and so you have to take care of yourself in the process. There's no other way. This back to the inner child is like you have to check in with yourself constantly. And I'll close with this. My mom always says, andas en la comunidad. It's great. There's community out there, but know that there's a community inside of you too. Your hígado, your corazón, your liver, like these parts inside of us internally, they are a community too, and they need love too. So take your naps and drink your water.
That was beautiful. Another question?
Hello, everybody.
My name is Melanie, I'm the Comms Director for Poder Latinx, and I have two questions. And you can, all the panelists, you can divide them yourselves. Here's the first one. Why is so important for today and the future that Latinas support other Latinas? And number two, you were very passionate about your personal stories. But what caught my attention is that it was not just a small bio, but you engaged us with your story. Why is so important for a Latina leader to never forget cómo empezó todo y de dónde salimos?
La primera, ¿cuál era?
Why is so important?
So Latinas support Latinas, and I think we have about 5 or 1.
Okay, I can start with the first one, Latinas supporting Latinas. I just want to ask you, have you ever seen a white man not support a white man? Like, the world is built, right, for white, heterosexual Christian men, period. And they know each other, they see each other, right? You just know, when you walk into a room, you feel it. Yeah, we call it the boys club, right? They have different names for it. And they have each other's back. It builds power. It keeps power. And more than keeping power, it keeps power away from others. So who do we have? We have each other. And that means everything. And that's why we're feeling what we feel right now. That's why they're feeling what they feel right now. There wouldn't be such a concerted effort to disenfranchise if they did not understand that as a collective, we have more power. So I can't think of a single reason to not support another Latina leader. It makes no sense. If you look at what we are trying to accomplish, it makes no sense to not have each other's back. We might not agree on everything. Nobody agrees on everything. But we can be in conversation with each other. We can commit to seeing each other. We can even commit to seeing each other's inner child if we really want to do it right. And we are in charge of those commitments, nobody else. Nobody can take that away from us. Nobody can diminish it. It is ours to use, to help each other. There is no reason not to, and there is everything to gain. And that's why it is not only important, it is imperative. It's critical in this moment of time because they feel it, because they're scared. They're scared that we gathered like this.
We're on track to be what Hispanics are on track to be every 1 in 4 person by the year 2016. No matter if they send us back now, we're still on track. Because they did it before.
Yeah, we are on track to be a majority minority country, right? So there are only pluses. There are no minuses. We need to help each other. We need to reach across. We need to reach back. We need to reach forward. We need to be building a bridge for each other.
Okay, mujeres, Latinas. Okay, and not just mujeres in general, and yeah, and I'm gonna just tie it back to reproductive rights and choice. Like, look at what they're doing. They're trying to have power over our bodies. Like, what the hell? Like, no, galletitas más bonitas, no more. Like, find your community. Yeah, find your hociconas, your desmadrosas friends, and get with them because we need to rally around. We need to rally around the it's a call to action, right? That we need to rally around our right to choice over our body, over autonomy. And if that can bring you together, then I don't know what else, okay. We're on the same boat, even like Natalie said, we might not all agree, we might, personality clashes, whatever that happens. But at the end of the day, you have to really be ready for any moment where change can happen. Angela Davis, she's another amazing leader from the Black Panther movement from the 1960s, who talks about you must believe that change is possible at any moment. You have to be ready for it. You have to be ready for transformation at any moment. So the more ready, the more connected we are. When something happens, we're going to be able to be together in a space and fight for that together because it's needed. We need to be unified. We need to be one unified front. And then the other thing, I think it's so important that when another person shines, it's good because then we shine bigger and brighter together. I'm also, yes. And I'm just very grateful my friend Corina's here. I'm very close with her. She's had my back in meetings where nobody else stood up for me. And she had my back and she's like, actually, I see Dulce's point. And I'm like, thank you, because I'm starting to feel like I was on the Salem witch trials, And I'm just really grateful for my friend in that moment, in that space, because it just took her one voice, one other person just saying like, yeah, I'm here with you. Aquí estoy. And that, I'm always going to remember that moment, Corina, so I love you. Thank you for that, because it made me realize that I wasn't alone in the space. I felt supported. I felt seen. I felt heard. And I think that that's what we can do for each other, even if it's just one other mujer that can do that for you, or that you could be that for someone else. It's so helpful to just have someone's back, but have someone have yours too. And finally, I think about just her abuelitas and las madres de mis madres, right? Thinking about how we come from generations of powerful mujeres that supported us in our family lineage. Like, we're here because of so many generations of women that fought and loved and prayed for you to be here in this moment. And, our ancestors, they're not all perfect, but we're here because someone loved you here. We're all here for a reason. And that's through the hard work and labor and sacrifice of so many other women and so many other people before us. So we gotta have each other's back. Okay, now pass it to you, Rebecca.
No, I'll just, because I don't think we have a lot more time. I already see the time is up. But it was just to address the second question. I thought like both of you just nailed the first question. But the stories, we can go on and share resumes. We can go on and give different points and whatever we're going to do. If it's going to be to talk to a voter, if it's going to be to give a Know Your Rights training, if it's going to be to talk to a funder, you could go down the list of points. But if you don't bring a story, it's easier to forget those points. It's always going to be easier to forget those stories. So stories make your conversations more memorable. So like right now, I think everything that we said was based on stories. It was our lived experience. So knowing how you share your personal story, where we teach them the Marshall Gantz model and the story of self. It's like you have a decision, a challenge, decision, and outcome. And it's something that we learn how to use. It's a technique. And if you have those components, and it could be our own story, it could be the story of us in our community, and the story of now, and it all ties together. But it's important, so it really sticks in people's minds when we have stories. And I just, if I can, I was coming from a lunch today. If I can, ya tengo el micrófono y no lo solté. I was coming from a lunch today with this guy who organized with Cesar Chavez, the señor, not guy. He is an elder already. Antonio Bustamante, you know Antonio? And he's in Yuma now. He's Yuma, and he's about to retire. And he's like, Raquel, what do? I need to get back in the game. And he was going over his stories of organizing. He's a prominent attorney, but he wants to get back into organizing. And then I just started asking him questions about when he was organizing. He organized with Cesar Chavez. He was part of the recall of Williams back in 1972, when they took away the opportunity for farm workers to organize in the state of Arizona. But what I noticed, and I'm bringing it up here, I didn't bring it up at the lunch, is that he was just talking about guys. He was only talking about men. Que el primero que corrió para el Congreso, que el primero que corrió para supervisor, and of course, you know, Cesar Chavez being the organizer of the farm worker. But in between all of it, he weaved in the story of Dolores Huerta. And he was sharing the story that Dolores was doing all the work of collecting signatures for the recall in May, in the hot summer of Arizona. He even used that, and she was out there, and people were telling Dolores that they couldn't go through the recall of Williams. And she was talking to labor leaders, that she was talking to elected officials. She was even getting that from people in the community. But when she went into the room, she organized all the vatos, todos los vatos, dijo, everybody come here. And he said it during lunch, it was so funny. He's like, hey, come over here, everybody, and listen to me. And she was a person who took on the leadership and is like, I'm tired of people saying that no se puede, but we have to go back and tell people that yes, sí se puede. And that's where the sí se puede chant came up from, like when Cesar Chavez was fasting in Santa Rita Hall, but the women were the one collecting the signatures out in the field. So we need to not only take on the leadership role of being out in the field, but we need to make sure that we are taking on, as mujeres and supporting mujeres, to be in the back and to be in the front of the stage. I think that's where we need to take it to the next level. And I was not judging Antonio, it's just the history that we have to be intentional. And sometimes when we grab the microphone, and I've been accused of this, ay, es que a la Raquel le gusta el micrófono. Sí, pero me meto una chinga, cabrones. I'm going to get the microphone too if I have to. It's like, don't give it up. Don't give up the microphone either. So.
I heard a story about Dolores that they used to call her La Leona. We say La Leona. And the reason why is because she was the first one up in the morning and the last one to leave.
Wow. Wow.
So I'm just saying, and she had like 11 kids. I don't even know. I'm like, wow, mis respetos para La Leona. Just know that there's a Leona inside of all of you.
Yeah. No, claro que sí.
Muy bien. This was so powerful, so inspirational. And I want to thank each and every one of you for giving us your time, saying yes to this summit. I know for certain that you've touched each and every one of these ladies here today. Thank you so much. And I want to end with a chant. Latinas united will never be divided. And then if we can form a circle and then end with the Si Se Puede chant, because that's how we started as well.
And thank you, Nancy, for putting it together. We just said yes to be in the panel, porque también me gusta hablar. So you know.
I saw take a picture.
Turn up. Oh, it was awesome.
Thank you for coming to Jose, our environmental organizer, because he comes from organizing farm workers. And I know this is very dear and near to his heart. And I want to give him the floor.
Yeah, y va a estar aquí. ¿Vas a hacer una?
Bye, everybody.